Hey, wonderful to see so many people again. We just concluded a wonderful session this weekend. Thank you everybody online for being here too. Um, I just been thoroughly enjoying cooking for folks the past couple of times I've been here, and then simultaneously giving Dharma talks about cooking. Right. So, in the Zen tradition and Soto Zen, cooking is really, really central to our practice. And I spent so many years in the kitchen, not because I wanted to. I didn't know squat about cooking when I first came to the Zen Center. I knew how to make cereal. I knew how to get the milk out of the fridge and pour it in a bowl. That was the extent of my knowledge, pretty much. I knew how to boil water for spaghetti. That was the extent of it. And then my teacher kind of just said, "You got to cook." And I was like, "What?" So she showed me a few things, not very much, and then suggested some recipes. So I started using these recipes and following them, and gradually you just learn. And I just think this is one of the most. I don't know why we don't teach kids this skill early on. I do know, actually. They're hard to teach, but we should still try. We should still try because I think home ec is probably one of the more important classes that we can something that's so practical, but Zen takes it to a whole nother level. There's so much. What I notice is how easy it is to waste food and resources. It's so easy in so many different ways. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today in part. There's three. So the Tenzo Kyokun it's just chock full of all kinds of basically rules and stories that go with those rules of how to cook in a Zen temple. And we want to keep in mind that this was a big deal for Buddhism to cook, for monks particular to cook. Even now in Southeast Asia, monks aren't allowed in the kitchen. They're not allowed to cook. And so in Buddhism, thanks to Bodhidharma, goes from India to China, then the practice changes, and all of a sudden, cooking is a thing. And the monks who were forbidden to cook by the Buddha now all of a sudden are expected to cook. And this is a cultural shift. And they really take it to heart. And actually there's already precedent for cooking in a religious context or in a spiritual context in China. There's a story, and I don't know I can't do it justice, but I'll do my best, but it's about this butcher who his job is to cut meat, and this guy wants to know, can I get the best cut? And the guy's like, yeah, all of them are the best cut. He's renowned. This butcher is renowned for getting the best meat, and he's able to cut it off of the bone perfectly without ever needing to sharpen his knife. And this story is a Tao. I believe, if I remember correctly, it's a Taoist story. And again, I haven't done it justice, but the point is that there is a real respect for cooking in China, and coming out of the Taoist tradition, and the sense of attentiveness to what you're doing. So it's already there in China, even before Buddhism enters. And Zen is actually, in a sense, learning. Buddhism is learning from the Chinese, from the philosophy that's already there. So they take this, the Buddhists take this up to heart, and now, okay, we're going to go gung-ho on learning how to bring enlightenment, how enlightenment can enter our lives through cooking. Right? It was forbidden. It was breaking the precepts to cook in India. Right? That was a gate to unenlightenment in India. Now it's the gate to enlightenment in China. So see how it changes? See how rules, we have these rules, but we have to be careful with them and not take them too literally. Otherwise, things don't actually do what they're meant to do, and that's to relieve suffering, to end suffering. That's the purpose of these rules, to end suffering. So we got to always keep that in mind when we think of rules. They're not hard and fast. They're meant to bring us to enlightenment. And Zazen, it's very obvious how that can bring us to enlightenment or the end of suffering. Maybe, what are we talking about when we say enlightenment? Maybe one way to think of it is the end of suffering. And a word that comes to my mind around the end of suffering is ahimsa, non-harm. Zazen is the ultimate in non-harm. We're not harming anybody when we're doing Zazen because we're not moving our body, so you can't intentionally harm somebody because we're sitting totally still. We're not flapping our lips, right? So you can't say anything that you later regret. And we're letting go of thoughts that create anxiety, that create depression. We're intentionally letting go of those thoughts. So on all those three levels, body, speech, and mind, we're not doing any harm. That's the epitome of not doing harm. That's the epitome of ending suffering. That's what we're talking about when we're getting to the end of suffering, which in Buddhism we call enlightenment. We're not there, though, obviously, because we can't sit on a cushion for 9 years like Bodhidharma did. And by the way, his arms and legs are said to have fallen off in that process. So I don't know. That doesn't sound like the end of suffering to me. It sounds like the beginning of a long suffering. But anyways, somehow in some people's mind that was inspiring to them. But in one way, the dropping off of the arms and legs, just to keep this, how does this make sense for us? There's these Bodhidharma dolls in Japan, and they have no arms and legs. It's just like a big round face with big eyes and a kind of a round body. And if you tap them or push them, guess what happens? They're like a weeble wobble. Those of you who know weeble wobbles, they come right back. They come right back up. And that's Bodhidharma is said to have said, fall down 7 times, get up 8. So whatever happens to us in our life, that's the Bodhidharma saying, don't give up, right? Get back up. And the doll is there to remind us. You push down Bodhidharma and he keeps popping back up. Keeps popping back up. That's what we want to do. That's how we want to manifest our practice. Life is going to push us down in one way or the other. People that we love are going to push us down in one way or the other. People that we hate are already pushing us down. So our way of standing back up is to offer them love and kindness. Right? We offer our enemies loving kindness. It's a very powerful practice of prayer. And that's what Jikan's been talking about this session, the loving kindness prayer. You can do this for anybody. And especially when people are, it's harder to do for people that you're angry and upset with, but still that's our aspiration. But do it for people that are not difficult first. Right? Just a simple 3 words. May they be well, peaceful, and happy. Well, peaceful. That's all you got to remember. Just say that mantra in your mind when you wake up in the morning. May everybody be well, peaceful, and happy. And then start your day. And then you go through it, and somebody flips you the finger in the car. May they be well, peaceful, and happy. You've been practicing, so now you can genuinely offer them, loving kindness. That's how it works. So getting back to the kitchen, 3 things I want to share. The outline here is that one is Dogen says in his instructions to the cook, he says, see all ingredients as if they were your own eyeballs. The second thing he says is do it yourself. And what's the third thing? Be able to do multiple things at one time. So I want to talk about those 3 things, starting with the eyeballs. right? What does it mean to look at the ingredients in the kitchen as your own eyeballs? And this has every relationship to ahimsa, every relationship, because if you were to see every ingredient as your own eyes, how would you treat your eyes? We protect our eyes without even thinking about it. If something were to come towards your face hard and fast, you immediately turn away. You don't want to get hit, right? You're not thinking, oh, I'm going to let it hit me. It's natural. We protect our eyes because they're so precious, and we want to be able to see. There's this gift, a miracle, opening up our eyes in the morning. We don't realize it often enough that when we are waking up and we open our eyes that we're able to see. We don't realize that until something happens, or we get glasses. And by the way, where'd my glasses go? We get these glasses. By the way, I've been working with letting go more and more of my glasses and not being so dependent on them. This pair of glasses is my previous pair. I got a better pair, and I started reading about how we can actually change our eyesight. That the glasses make the eyes more lazy. They don't sharpen and dilate and open and close the eye itself. It's an organ. It's like a muscle, and when you put glasses on, it just makes it lazy. So I've been working with not using the glasses when I don't need them, and then using a pair of glasses that is an older prescription. And I just I recommend looking through your own, and especially like I got these glasses. They convinced me to get bifocals, and so I got bifocals. But now I'm much happier taking them off to see things up close. When I'm reading, or if I have to take care of my daughter, I can't see her as well through the glasses. I take them off, and I see her like, oh, there's no lens here. It's so wonderful. But then distance, I still need them, especially for driving and things like that. But just to say, our eyes are extraordinarily precious, and we want to preserve them. We want to exercise them even. In the yoga school that I trained in, integral yoga, there's actual eye exercises that you can do to get your eyes stronger. So anyways, there's a lot of things out there that we can think about with regards to our eyes. And Dogen is saying to see the food that we are preparing as our eyes. That's the practice, right? That's the practice. See the food as your eyes. Why? Because if they're your eyes, you're not going to easily throw it away. You're not going to easily, it's so practical. When you see the food as your own eyes, you take care not to, when you're chopping a carrot, my teacher taught me, take that little black spot on the top where the greens come out of it, that black spot, she said, you got to get close to it so you get all of the carrot that can be consumed. So I see people sometimes clopping off like an inch off of that. And that's food, right? That's not seeing the carrot as your own eyes. That's seeing it as something to like excess, right? So got to be careful about things like that. Or like when we're peeling an onion, I'm tempted to just when the onion skin doesn't come so easily, I want to pull the outermost layer off. That's still edible because I'm impatient. So, but the practice of not harming, that goes into this peeling of the onion, and it creates a kind of sensitivity to what we're doing, right? To the food, to what we're doing with the food, to the food. I'm trying to think what else that I did this morning when I was cooking this weekend. Yeah, when things fall on the floor, we're careful not, first of all, to have them fall on the floor. So chopping in such a way that they don't fall on the floor. But if they do, okay, well, let's wash this and make sure that it's edible still. Washing your hands is another thing. Every time we go in the kitchen, we should be washing our hands. If we're going to be handling food, we wash our hands because we don't want to get people sick. Right? We're touching food, and our hands been on our face, our mouth, stuff. So keep the hands clean. This is another practice of ahimsa. And this is seeing the food as our own eyes. And you can also take it another direction where you look at the food and you ask yourself, where did this food come from? What are all the myriad things that happen to get this food from where it was to here? Right? If you're drinking your cup of coffee, you can think, well, there's the coffee beans in this. Those coffee beans they didn't come from Nebraska, right? They didn't come from the Midwest. They came probably some subtropical country or tropical country somewhere. Who picked those beans that they got to us? And how did they get here? Who transported them? What have those beans seen? That coffee's looking back at us. It's saying, I saw all these things. All these things were touching me. And I grew out from the soil. So the coffee has its own eyes too. And it's looking back at us when we're drinking it. But we don't see it. We don't see it because we're not appreciating the eyes of the universe all around us watching. Everything is watching us. Everything is watching us. That could be bad news for some of us. I know it could be for me too. It's not good. But nobody gets off scot-free, and it's not to make us worry. It's not to make us worry. It's actually to help us to see that we're connected to everything else, and we do our very best. We try to love. We give the loving kindness out there as much as possible because we know all eyes are on us. Yeah. And that includes, this is what Jikan mentioned too, that includes ourselves. The loving kindness, the generosity, it's got to start with this one. It's got to start with you. It's got to include you. So take good care of yourself. Do what you need to do for yourself. Be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Right? You're doing the best you can. So this is seeing the food as your own eyes, taking care of those eyes. Number 2. What was number 2?
I only remember number 3.
DIY, do it yourself. There's a story, a DIY story here, and I shared this one before, but I want to just bring it up again. Yeah. So this is when Dogen meets this Tenzo, this cook. He's at port in China, and the cook comes looking for some Japanese mushrooms to purchase. He's traveled 25 miles. Remember that story? He traveled a marathon or a half a marathon just to get to buy these mushrooms, and then he's returning straight away and going back to his monastery. And Dogen says, "What time did you depart from the temple?" Tenzo says, "After lunch." Dogen says, "How far is it from here to Aiyuang?" And the Tenzo says 34 or 35 li, which is about 12 miles. Dogen says, when are you going to return to the temple? The Tenzo says, "As soon as I finish buying the mushrooms, I'll go." So Dogen says, "Today, unexpectedly, we have met and also had a conversation on this ship. Is this not a truly fortunate opportunity? Allow me, Dogen, to offer food to you." Tenzo Zenji. Very honorific way of speaking to somebody, calling him Zenji. Okay, so Tenzo says, "It's not possible. If I do not take care of tomorrow's offering, it will be done badly." So this is the way of saying that he's taking responsibility for it. He doesn't want to give responsibility over to somebody else to do the cooking. And we need to be careful with this because I think it's important that we have help when we're in the kitchen. So I don't think this is saying that just that he's going to do it all himself. But let's read a little bit more. Dogen asks him, "In your temple, aren't there some workers who know how to prepare meals the same as you?" Right, that makes sense. If only one person, the Tenzo, is not there, will something be deficient? And the Tenzo responds, during my old age, I am handling this job. Right? That's his sacred duty. So in senility, as I'm senile, right, I am doing this wholehearted practice. How could I possibly just give away my responsibilities? So that's what I want to focus on. How could I give away my responsibilities? Most of us are probably not going to have a lot of opportunity to cook in a Zen temple, but you have opportunities to cook every day in your own homes. And how many times do you begrudge when your children don't come to help out making the meal? I know I do that. You know, I want Malcolm to come in and help me out. Can you chop some vegetables with me? No, Dad, I'm reading. So instead of me nagging him, I take the responsibility myself. And while I will invite him to help me, I'm not going to begrudge him his not wanting to help me. And there's my karma returning too. How often did I help my parents out in the kitchen when I was growing up? You know, how can I expect that from my own son to help me out? So I have to be a good example. And this inspires me. When I think about this, it inspires me to not begrudge, which I do have a tendency to do. When I think about this, though, I stop. I don't. It's not his job to cook. I want him to cook. I'll get him to cook as much as I can, but I'm going to take responsibility for this meal. You know, I want him to wash the dishes and take his dishes to the sink, right? And I'll ask him to do that, but he may not. Here's the other thing. I want him to clean the peanut butter off of his spoon better. And about a month ago, I gave up. For the past 2 years, he eats a scoop of peanut butter with chocolate chips on it every time at nighttime, 1, 2, sometimes 3. And I said, you got to finish the peanut butter still caked on, the spoon's still caked on with peanut butter. I'm washing this off, the sponge is getting all kinked up with your peanut butter, and I'm using all this water to wash the peanut butter off of the sponge that could have been in your mouth. And I'm telling him this. And he says, okay, Dad, so he cleans it up. But he has to be told every time. So now I'm just, okay. He's got to, it's not sinking in the direct way. So sometimes we deal with this. We have to deal with this in the kitchen. And the gift of serving others, that's the other thing. The gift of taking up, I'm going to make this, and I'm going to take full responsibility for it. I'm not going to blame anybody for the ingredients that I have. I've been given these wonderful ingredients here, even if they're not the best. I'm not gonna let somebody else influence this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna take this responsibility all myself. And there's some power in taking that responsibility yourself and doing it, and not relying on somebody else to do it for you. And again, I don't think that means we should not recruit people to help us out or to get the family involved. But don't begrudge them if they don't, and if they want to do something else, and do it wholeheartedly. Do what you're doing wholeheartedly. Keeping in mind not wasting. That's a huge one. Not wasting we waste so much. I was talking with Steve earlier about how if you go out to eat, you're not doing it yourself. Somebody else is setting the table for you at the restaurant. Somebody else is cooking. And how much of that food gets wasted? Now, I could never work unless I was under dire circumstances at a restaurant, because I just know how much food just gets thrown away in those environments, and it just tears me up. But sometimes we do eat out, and there's nothing, ethically wrong about eating out, but we just need to know, if you're in control of the meal, you decide what gets thrown away and what gets not. And if you eat out at a fast food restaurant, you're just tremendous waste going on there. So thinking about what we do with the leftovers Can we save it for another time? Can we put it in the compost if we can't save it, if it's going to spoil, if it's already spoiled? Can we put it in the compost, or we put it in the freezer, or maybe give it away? Maybe we give away food if we have an abundance. This is all shingi. This is all the rules for the temple, but it could be the rules for our own household as well, how we treat our food. So just some things to think about. And the last thing is the doing multiple things at once. And I think this is a really tricky point for many of us practicing Zen, because we often, we start out focusing on one thing, say, for example, our breathing. And we get really frustrated. I see people get so frustrated because of various thoughts that enter their mind, and they can't focus on one thing because they're focusing, and then they beat themselves up for focusing for having too many thoughts. But this practice of not focusing on one thing, but having your mind in multiple directions, is actually the natural way of using our mind. So I really caution people in Zazen against hyper-focus on one thing, say the breathing. It's just very unnatural to hyper-focus on one thing. It's much easier to focus on multiple things at once. So our breath is one part, our body is another thing to focus on simultaneously. And we can focus on letting go of thoughts. We can focus on the Buddha's teachings. We can focus on our emotions. These are all the 4 foundations of mindfulness: the body, the feelings, the thoughts, and the Buddha's teachings. Those are the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And so all 4 of those things are incorporated into Zazen, all simultaneously. We're not trying to pick one over the other. They come and go. Maybe we have to get skillful at practicing in a balanced way and figuring out how to do this. It's not a cookie cutter thing. Like it's not one size fits all. So it depends on where our minds are. But this really plays out in the kitchen, because if your mind isn't on multiple things at once, disaster can happen in the kitchen. You burn things very easily, and I've had that experience where I'm hyper-focused on one thing, or some thought gets in my head about somebody I'm angry with, and then I notice the pot's burning. The pot also is hyper-focused, right? So that's it's just the kitchen is a reflection of our mind, but it's also a reflection of the universe. The whole universe is right there in the kitchen. So we wanna have our eyes and ears on multiple things at once. I had to turn off the fan because I couldn't hear. I needed to hear what's going on in the kitchen as I'm chopping the vegetables. I got things going on the stove right now. The onions are being sautéed. They're cooking, and I need to stir them every so often. But I need to chop more things too, and I need to clean the dishes too, right? So we're doing multiple things at one time. And there's a wonderful concept. I struggled with this so much in my training with my teacher, doing work in the kitchen, and because I'd be in there and she'd be telling me, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this, and I'm constantly pulled in this direction and that direction. I couldn't find the ability to settle in one thing. And then I came across this term recently, thanks to one of my colleagues and teachers, called simultaneous inclusion. And I learned that it's in one of the cases of the Book of Serenity, case 21. And it's this term. I'll read you the passage in this. When I learned about this term, simultaneous inclusion, everything made much more sense, and I wish I had learned it first. It's a koan story. It's embedded within a koan story, but here's the part that I think is important. Good people, right? First of all, that's important to keep it on. Good people. Are you a good person? Yes, you are good people. We are good people. Start from there. You're not bad. We don't start from badness. We start from good. We're not here because we did something wrong. We're here because we're good. You can argue with me on that one. But I'm just going to say that's a misconception. That's a misconception. We're all good people. We just don't always realize it. Good people. As you eat, boil tea, sew, and sweep, you should recognize the one not busy. Then you will realize the union of mundane reality and enlightened reality. In the Dongshan progression, Dongshan is Master Tozan, and some consider that's the in the word Soto, that's his toe, not his big toe, but the toe of Tozan, or in Chinese Dongshan. In the Dongshan progression, this is called simultaneous inclusion, naturally not wasting any time. And there's a wonderful book about this I'm still kind of reading and getting my mind wrapped around, called The One Who Is Not Busy by, what's her name? I say Barbara Cohen. Anyways, it's called The One Who Is Not Busy. It's titled after this, and it has great practices for simultaneous inclusion. In other words, doing multiple things at once. This is so effective for working with anxiety, because when I started doing meditation and trying to deal with my own anxiety, and I was told, you can focus on your breath to calm yourself down, and I start focusing on my breathing, and I start getting more anxious. Why am I getting more anxious? But if you're practicing simultaneous inclusion, you're focusing not just on one thing, a hyper focus. You're focusing on multiple things. You can focus on your breathing and the bottoms of your feet while you're standing. 3 things right there, right? Breath, standing, feet. Put your attention on 3 things at once, and that itself can diminish anxiety, because anxiety is a result of hyper-focus on one thing, usually connected to the future. So bring it back to the present. Put your attention on multiple things. It could just be, don't make it too complicated. 2 things. 2 things is a good start. But keep in mind the image, one of the statues of Avalokiteshvara is a being with 11 heads, and they're all facing in different directions. There's the front, the sides, the back, and then it goes up. There's eyes around that, and then on the top. So it's a being, that's the embodiment of compassion, one that sees in all directions, the whole world. One Zen teacher says, we don't have eyes in the back of our head, but when you sit zazen, you develop eyes in the back of your head. Right? So to be able to see in front and behind, how do you do that? It just boggles the mind. Stay with that. You don't have to figure it out. Wow. We can see what we can sense. There's senses behind us. We're like frogs, aren't they amazing? They can see in 2 directions at once. Look at the way their eyes are on their head, right? They're on the sides here. But our morphology has our eyes come forward, and so we think that this is all we can see. But the frog, right, has eyes there. What must be? What is it seeing? What's going through its mind that it's able to see in opposite directions simultaneously? We have that capacity, right? We can draw our inspiration from the frog, and a lot of creatures have those eyes on the side of their head like that. So, that's what I wanted to share today. Those 3 points. What was the first one? Eyes, right? To see food as your own eyes, to do it yourself, to take full responsibility yourself for your own cooking, and to practice simultaneous inclusion. Those are the 3 points that are instructions for the cook. And of course, I think this is so practical for our life in general. We don't have to master these things, but just to consider them when you enter into your own kitchen. Maybe just pick one. I'm gonna look at the food, even if it's just for 2 minutes. You don't have to do it for the whole time. It might be really hard to do it, but look at the food as my own eyes for a minute or so, and feel that. But you're naturally going to practice simultaneous inclusion if you're really cooking wholeheartedly. You got to have your eyes on multiple things at once, and know that that's the path to enlightenment. You don't have to try to get rid of that. That's a good thing. It keeps us on our feet. It's kind of like the thing that I can. Maybe another image would be juggling. A juggler takes one ball, starts with one ball, and they're throwing it up, and then adds a second ball, and maybe they get 3 balls. But their mind is capable of handling multiple things at one time, as is ours. And it takes some practice. It takes the practice. So don't give up on yourself. Right? Keep at it. Thank you. Yeah, and happy to begin a Q&A or discussion.